The wind came first screaming down from Lake Erie like it had a score to settle. By nightfall, Buffalo was already disappearing under sheets of white, the kind of snow that erases streets, muffles sound, and turns familiar neighborhoods into foreign territory. The weather alert on Evelyn Carter's old radio didn't bother softening the message. Life-threatening conditions, stay indoors, emergency services suspended. Evelyn turned the volume down and sat very still in her kitchen chair, hands folded over one another to stop their shaking. At 74, she had lived through storms before, but this one felt different. This one felt final. The lights had gone out an hour earlier. The furnace had followed not long after coughing once, before surrendering to the cold. Now, the house breathed the same icy air as the street outside. Evelyn could see her breath when she exhaled. She pulled her cardigan tighter and whispered almost out of habit, "Lord, help me through tonight." Then came the knock. It wasn't loud at first. More like someone testing the door, unsure whether they should try again. Evelyn froze. No one knocked on her door anymore. Not at night. Not in this neighborhood. Not in a blizzard. The second knock came harder, urgent, desperate. Her eyes drifted to the front window, its glass already clouded with frost. Through it, she saw shadows. Big ones. Shapes moving against the porch light, their outlines blurred by blowing snow. A memory flashed uninvited into her mind 10 years ago. A woman 2 streets over had opened her door after dark. She hadn't survived the night. Evelyn rose slowly, every joint protesting. She didn't turn on the porch light. She didn't speak. She moved to the side of the door and listened. Outside, the wind howled. Snow slammed against the siding like gravel. Then a voice cut through it deep and strained. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you." Another gust swallowed the rest of the sentence. Evelyn's heart hammered so hard she worried it might give her away. She crept closer and looked through the narrow slit in the curtain. 9 men stood on her porch. They were massive, broad shoulders wrapped in black leather heavy boots already buried in snow. Beards crusted with ice. Tattoos crawling up their necks and disappearing beneath jackets patched with symbols she recognized instantly. Hell's Angels. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Everything she had ever heard about men like this rushed to the surface at once. Violence, drugs, lawlessness. Stories whispered on the evening news, warnings passed from neighbor to neighbor. Her instincts screamed at her to step back, to lock herself in the bedroom and pray the storm drove them away. Another knock. This one weaker. "Ma'am," the voice said again. "Our bikes are dead. Roads are closed. We're freezing out here." Evelyn glanced down at her hands. They were trembling badly now. Arthritis and fear working together. She thought of the old revolver tucked into the kitchen drawer, the one her husband Frank had kept clean even after he stopped talking about the war. She could go get it. She could point it at the door and shout for them to leave. But where would they go? The radio's warning echoed in her head. Life-threatening conditions. Stay indoors. Outside, the temperature had dropped to nearly 20 below with the wind chill. No shelter meant death. Not maybe. Not eventually. Tonight. One of the men coughed a deep, ugly sound that didn't stop. Another leaned heavily against the railing, his head bowed. These weren't men looking for trouble. These were men running out of time. Evelyn pressed her forehead against the door, eyes squeezed shut. "Lord," she whispered, her voice breaking, I don't have much left. If tonight is my test, please help me choose right." Her mind raced through every reason not to open that door. She was old. She was alone. She had no phone signal, no neighbors close enough to hear her scream. One wrong decision could cost her everything. Then another thought pushed through the fear, quiet but steady. If she didn't open the door, they would die. Her husband's voice surfaced from memory, calm and certain the way it always had been. "You help when you can. That's what makes you human." Evelyn straightened her shoulders. She slid the deadbolt back, each click loud in the silence final as a verdict. When she opened the door, the storm rushed in like a living thing. Snow swirled around her feet, stinging her ankles. The men stepped back instinctively, giving her space. Up close, they were even bigger. But what struck her wasn't their size. It was their eyes. Exhausted, focused, afraid in a way that had nothing to do with her. The man in front removed his helmet slowly, respectfully. Gray hair clung to his temples, frozen stiff. "Thank you for answering, ma'am," he said. "We won't cause trouble. We just need to make it till morning." Evelyn swallowed. You can come in," she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "But you follow my rules. This is my home." "Yes, ma'am," he replied without hesitation. One by one, they stepped inside, stamping snow from their boots. No one pushed. No one spoke out of turn. The door closed behind them, shutting out the storm. For a moment, no one moved. Then the same man spoke again, his tone shifting sharper now. "All right, quick check. Anyone hurt?" A chorus of low responses followed. Cold hands, numb toes, breathing's rough. "Okay," he said. "We handle it." Evelyn watched confused as the men moved with quiet efficiency. Jackets came off. Wet gloves were lined neatly near the door. One man stood near the window, scanning the street. Another knelt by the baseboard, feeling for heat. They weren't acting like criminals. They were acting like soldiers. "Ma'am," one of them said, gently. "Where's your furnace basement?" Evelyn replied. "But it hasn't worked since sundown." Two of them were already moving toward the stairs. "You don't have to," she began. "We do," the gray-haired man said. "Sit down, please." Evelyn lowered herself into her chair, her legs suddenly weak. Her house, once so quiet, it echoed, now hummed with purposeful movement. Tools appeared from saddlebags. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Low voices exchanged clipped phrases she recognized without understanding why. Perimeter. Rotation. Watch. A man brought her a folded blanket from one of their packs. Another set a mug of coffee in front of her, steaming, rich-smelling. "Drink," he said softly. "You're cold." She looked up at him, eyes stinging. Why, she asked. "Why are you doing all this?" He met her gaze, something old and heavy in his expression. "Because you opened the door." Down in the basement, metal clanged. The furnace shuddered, then roared back to life. Warm air began to creep through the vents. Evelyn let out a sob she hadn't realized she'd been holding back. Outside, the storm raged on, burying Buffalo under ice and fear. But inside that small, aging house, 9 men, who the world had written off, stood guard over a woman it had forgotten. And none of them knew yet that this night would bind their lives together for the rest of them. By daylight, the storm outside Evelyn Carter's house looked less like a natural disaster and more like a verdict. Snow buried the street signs. Cars sat frozen in place, like abandoned toys. The neighborhood near the old steel mills had been struggling for years, but winter had a way of exposing every weakness all at once. Evelyn had lived on this block for nearly 4 decades. She had watched families arrive full of hope and leave quietly when the factory shut down. She had watched storefronts turn into boarded windows, churches close their doors, and streetlights flicker out one by one, never to be fixed. People called it a forgotten pocket of Buffalo. Evelyn called it home. Her mornings always started the same way. Before the sun rose, before the buses began running, she sat at her small kitchen table with a cup of instant coffee and a Bible whose spine had been taped more times than she could remember. She read slowly, not because she struggled with the words, but because she liked to sit with them. Rushing had never brought her anything good. At 74, Evelyn lived on a Social Security check that barely stretched far enough to cover the basics. After utilities, property taxes, and prescriptions, she had just over $200 a month for food. She made it work the only way she knew how, carefully. She kept a notebook in the kitchen drawer where she tracked every dollar. Oatmeal instead of eggs, soup watered down to last 3 meals instead of 1. Medication rationed when the copays crept up. She hated that part most, but she hated asking for help even more. The house itself told the story of quiet endurance. The roof leaked when the snow melted too fast. One bedroom had been closed off completely because the floor sagged near the window. The furnace was older than some of the neighbors' grandchildren, and every winter Evelyn wondered if this would be the year it finally gave out for good. Banks had already decided she wasn't worth the investment. She remembered sitting across from a loan officer 3 years earlier, hands folded in her lap, listening as he explained why the house wasn't eligible for repair assistance. The area values just don't justify it, he'd said not unkindly. Evelyn had nodded, thanked him, and walked home in the cold, feeling smaller with every step. That was the moment she understood something important. The world hadn't turned against her. It had simply moved on without her. What kept her going wasn't money or comfort. It was memory. Frank Carter's photograph sat on the mantel framed in cheap wood that Evelyn polished every Sunday. He was smiling in the picture, though she knew that smile had come hard-earned. Frank had been a Vietnam veteran, a truck mechanic who knew how to fix just about anything with enough time and patience. He rarely talked about the war, but the discipline never left him. He stood straight. He kept his word. He believed that dignity was something no one could take unless you handed it over yourself. Frank died 12 years earlier from a heart attack that came without warning. 1 minute, he was tightening a bolt in the garage. The next, he was gone. Evelyn had learned how loud silence could be after that. She never remarried, never considered leaving the house. This place held every version of their life together. Birthday dinners, whispered arguments, quiet forgiveness. When people asked why she stayed, she always gave the same answer. Somebody has to remember what this neighborhood used to be. The kids on the block knew her as Grandma Eve. They knocked on her door when they scraped their knees or needed a bathroom after school. She kept bandages in a jar by the sink and never asked questions she didn't need answers to. On Sundays, she opened her living room to whoever wanted to listen to scripture, even if they didn't believe a word of it. One afternoon, a boy named Marcus had asked her why she bothered. He was 12, already taller than she liked, already carrying the weight of things children shouldn't have to think about. "Why you still here, Grandma Eve?" he'd said. "Ain't nobody fixing this place." Evelyn had looked out at the cracked sidewalk, the broken light pole, the empty houses. Then she looked back at him. "Because if everyone leaves," she said, "then the only people left are the ones who don't care." That had always been her line in the sand. The neighborhood wasn't violent in the way people imagined. It was tired, neglected. Police cars drove through without stopping. City trucks rarely came unless someone complained loudly enough. Evelyn complained when she had to, especially when dealers started drifting too close to the elementary school. It earned her a reputation as difficult, but she wore that label with pride. Difficult meant she hadn't given up. That night of the storm, before the knocking ever began, Evelyn had followed her usual routine. She turned the thermostat down to save money. She layered sweaters. She checked the locks twice, not out of fear, but habit. When the furnace failed, she sighed, wrapped herself tighter, and told herself she'd get through one more night like she always did. She didn't call her daughter in Rochester. She didn't call anyone. She never wanted her children worrying about things they couldn't fix from miles away. Frank had taught her that too. Some burdens you carry quietly. What the world never seemed to notice was that women like Evelyn carried more than most. They carried neighborhoods on their backs. They carried histories no one wrote down. They carried the weight of being overlooked without letting it turn into bitterness. That was the woman who stood behind that door when 9 men knocked. Not a saint, not a hero, just someone who had spent a lifetime choosing decency even when no one was watching. When the storm eventually passed and the snow began to melt, the street would look the same to anyone driving by. Same cracked pavement, same boarded windows, same aging house with a faded blue door. But something had already shifted long before anyone else could see it. Because the world had forgotten Evelyn Carter, and she had never forgotten what the world was supposed to be. The house settled into a strange rhythm once the storm claimed the night. Not loud, not chaotic, purposeful. Evelyn Carter noticed it first in the silence between movements. No raised voices, no careless steps. Each man seemed to know where to stand, without being told how to move, without colliding into another body in a space far too small for 9 grown men. It reminded her of something she hadn't felt in years, something she couldn't quite name yet. Order. One of them remained near the front window, his back straight, his eyes tracking the street through a narrow gap in the curtain. Another took position by the hallway that led to the bedrooms. They rotated without discussion, a silent agreement passing between them like muscle memory. "Heat's coming back slow," a voice called up from the basement. "But it'll hold." Good the gray-haired man reaper, she would later learn, answered calmly, "Check the pilot again in 10. Evelyn sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around the warm mug they'd insisted she drink first. She watched them from behind her glasses, studying details she hadn't noticed when fear had been louder than curiosity. The way they addressed one another, the way no one interrupted, the way even the biggest of them moved gently around her furniture, careful not to bump the table Frank had built with his own hands. These were not men accustomed to taking. They were men accustomed to responsibility. One of them sat down heavily on the floor, near the wall, his back against it, knees drawn up. His hands shook despite the growing warmth, not from the cold. Evelyn recognized that kind of tremor. She had seen it once before, years ago, when a neighbor's son came home from overseas and couldn't sleep through the night. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked softly. The man's startled eyes snapping up, scanning the room before he found her. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Just adjusting." Reaper knelt beside him without making a show of it. "Breathe," he said quietly. "In through the nose. Out slow." The man followed his lead, the shaking easing little by little. No one stared. No one commented. It was handled the way families handle things, without judgment, without spectacle. Evelyn felt something loosen in her chest. She stood slowly and moved to the cabinet, pulling down a mismatched collection of mugs. "I don't have much," she said, "but there's more coffee if anyone needs it." Every man in the room stood. All at once. The sound of boots shifting on hardwood filled the air. Evelyn froze, startled by the sudden movement. Then she saw their faces. Not threatening. Respectful. "We've got it, ma'am," one of them said quickly. "You sit." Reaper met her eyes, almost apologetic. "Habit," he said. "Didn't mean to startle you." She nodded, swallowing past the tightness in her throat. "Frank used to do that," she said before she could stop herself. "Stand up every time I entered the room." Reaper tilted his head. "Your husband?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "Army. Long time ago." Something passed between the men at that word. Recognition. A shared understanding that didn't require explanation. One of them reached into his jacket and placed a small worn coin on the table. It was heavy, dulled with age. Evelyn picked it up carefully, turning it over in her palm. "What's this?" she asked. "A reminder," he said, "that we're guests." She set it down, gently, unsure why her eyes burned. As the night deepened, the storm outside raged harder, but inside the house, the tension drained away in layers. The men spoke quietly among themselves, exchanging fragments of conversation Evelyn only half understood. Road conditions, fuel issues, a welfare check on another group stranded miles away. Service, always service. One of them took out a small notebook and began writing, keeping a log of times and checks. Another cleaned snowmelt from the floor with an old towel without being asked. When Evelyn rose to take her evening medication, someone was already there to steady her elbow, respectful, careful not to overstep. "You don't have to do all that," she said. "Yes, we do," he replied simply. At one point, the lights flickered back to life. The room brightened, revealing faces lined with age scars half hidden beneath beards and tattoos. These were not young men chasing chaos. These were men who had lived through it and survived. Near midnight, Evelyn found Reaper seated at the kitchen table, staring into his cup of coffee long after it had gone cold. "You look like someone who's carrying a lot," she said, easing into the chair across from him. He exhaled slowly. "We all are." She studied him for a moment. "You don't have to tell me, but I want you to know. You're safe here." His jaw tightened. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "we haven't felt safe in a long time." She reached across the table and rested her hand near his, not touching, just close enough to be felt. "Then you're welcome to stay awake as long as you need. This house knows how to keep watch." Reaper nodded, his eyes glistening despite his effort to keep his composure. Later, when the house finally settled into sleep, Evelyn rose to use the bathroom. As she passed the living room, she saw one of the men standing near the window, arms crossed, eyes alert. He turned slightly when he noticed her lowering his voice. "All quiet, ma'am," he said. "You rest." For the first time in years, Evelyn returned to bed without double-checking the locks. She slept deeply, wrapped in warmth, surrounded by strangers who felt less like strangers with every passing hour. And while the storm howled and the world outside remained unforgiving, something inside that small house had shifted permanently. The leather jackets, the tattoos, the reputation the world had assigned them, all of it faded against what Evelyn could see now with clear eyes. These were men shaped by duty, scarred by service, bound together by something stronger than fear. They were not the danger she had imagined. They were the reason she felt safe enough to sleep. 3 weeks passed before the phone rang. By then, Buffalo had returned to its familiar gray rhythm. Snowbanks shrank into dirty piles along the curb. The plows came late, if they came at all. Life settled back into the slow, quiet survival Evelyn Carter knew well. If anyone driving past her house noticed anything different, it was only that her porch light stayed on at night now. Evelyn noticed other things. Her trash cans, once left, toppled in the street, were suddenly placed neatly beside her fence every pickup day. The broken street light across from her house flickered one evening, then stayed on. Groceries appeared on her porch, twice good groceries, not the discount kind with no note and no explanation. When she asked around, no one admitted to leaving them. And then there were the motorcycles. They never stopped in front of her house. They didn't rev engines or linger. They rolled through the neighborhood slowly, 2 at a time, eyes up, heads turning, memorizing. Dealers who had stood on the corner for years were suddenly gone. No police tape, no sirens, just absence. Evelyn didn't connect the dots at first. She had lived long enough to know coincidence could feel meaningful when you wanted it to be. But when she found a small American flag planted neatly beside her front steps one morning, positioned to catch the early sun, her hands trembled as she picked it up. Frank had done that every Memorial Day, always just so. That afternoon, she finally unfolded the piece of paper Reaper had left behind the morning after the storm. She had tucked it into her Bible without reading it, unsure why she wasn't ready. The number was local. She stared at it for a long time before dialing. The line rang twice. "This is Matthew Donovan." Something in his voice made her sit down. I think you stayed at my house during the blizzard," Evelyn said carefully. "You went by Reaper." There was a pause. Then warmth flooded his tone, unmistakable and immediate. "Miss Carter," he said, "I've been hoping you'd call." Her chest tightened. "I have questions." "That's fair," he replied, "and you deserve answers." They spoke for nearly an hour. Matthew Donovan did not raise his voice once. He spoke the way men do when they are used to being listened to, not because of ego, but because clarity matters. He told her his full name. He told her about the men she had sheltered, former Marines, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs. Men who had served multiple tours and come home to a country that preferred not to look too closely at what service had cost them. He told her that the motorcycle club wasn't a rebellion, but a refuge. A way to stay alive when silence got too loud. Then he told her who he was. Colonel Matthew Graves, Donovan, he said quietly. United States Army. Retired. Evelyn gripped the edge of the table. He didn't list his commendations until she asked, Silver Star, Purple Heart, enough citations to fill a drawer. She felt dizzy hearing it struggling to reconcile the calm man on the phone with the leather-clad figure who had stood respectfully in her doorway. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Because you didn't help us for that reason, Donovan said, and we needed to remember what that felt like. She swallowed. That salute, she said softly. Why did you do that? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Miss Carter, he said. Finally, we weren't saluting you for that night. Her breath caught. We were saluting your husband. The words landed slowly like snow. Donovan continued, his voice steady but heavy. Frank Carter saved my life in Vietnam. I was young, stupid. My convoy took fire. Our vehicle was hit disabled in the open. Frank was the mechanic who refused to leave it behind. He got it running under fire and got us out. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Tears blurred her vision. He never talked about it, she whispered. Most heroes don't, Donovan said. But every man who stood in your house that night knows what your husband did. His name is still spoken with respect. The truth rearranged everything she thought she knew about her life. 2 days later, she heard engines outside. 9 motorcycles lined the street in perfect formation, engines idling low. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. Evelyn stepped onto her porch, heart racing. The men dismounted in unison. Donovan stepped forward, no helmet this time, his posture unmistakable. He looked at her for a long moment, then straightened. The salute was sharp, precise, impeccable. One by one, the others followed. Evelyn stood frozen, overwhelmed by the weight of it. Miss Carter, Donovan said, when they lowered their hands, you opened your door when you didn't have to. You reminded us what honor looks like outside a uniform. She shook her head, tears streaming freely now. I just did what was right. That's exactly why it matters, he said. He reached into his jacket and handed her a small metal token, worn smooth by time. This means family, he explained. If anyone ever gives you trouble, you show them this. Evelyn looked at the token, then back at the men standing before her. I don't want protection, she said quietly. Donovan smiled just a little. Ma'am, that's not how this works. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. As long as one of us rides, no harm will ever come to you. That's not a favor. That's an oath. The word carried weight. It settled into Evelyn's bones. She looked out at the street she had defended for years with nothing but stubbornness and faith. She thought of Frank, of the nights she had prayed not for comfort, but for purpose. All right, she said finally. But if you're family, then you follow my rules. Donovan laughed, a sound full of relief. Yes, ma'am. The engines roared to life moments later, the sound echoing down the block. As they rode away, neighbors stepped outside, confused, curious, a little in awe. Evelyn remained on her porch long after they disappeared. For years, she had believed the world had forgotten her. Now she understood something deeper. The world had been watching all along. A year later, the same wind came back to Buffalo. It wasn't as violent as the storm that had nearly buried the city the winter before, but it carried the same sharp bite off Lake Erie, the same warning that winter was not finished with them yet. Snow drifted lazily across the street, settling on rooftops and parked cars like a reminder. Evelyn Carter watched it from her front window, a mug of real coffee warming her hands. The house felt different now, stronger, warmer, not just because the furnace worked without complaint, or because the roof no longer leaked. The difference lived deeper than that. It lived in the sound of footsteps outside, in the quiet hum of activity that had become as familiar as breathing. Her street no longer felt abandoned. Veteran families had moved into two of the houses that once sat boarded up. A community garden filled the empty lot at the corner, its soil resting now under a thin blanket of snow waiting for spring. The broken street light across from her house stayed lit every night. Children played outside again, their laughter carrying farther than it used to. No one announced these changes. They just happened. Every morning, Evelyn's routine remained mostly the same. She rose early. She prayed. She cooked breakfast. But the table that once seated only one now rarely sat empty. Someone always seemed to stop by. A young veteran struggling to sleep. A neighbor needing advice. A kid who wanted to finish homework somewhere quiet. They all called her Grandma Eve now. She never asked how word had spread. She didn't need to. Matthew Donovan checked in most mornings, sometimes by phone, sometimes in person, always respectful of her space. The men who had stood watch in her living room that first night rotated through the neighborhood, not as enforcers, but as guardians. They fixed steps, cleared snow, helped elderly residents carry groceries. They listened. The city noticed when crime reports dropped. Local businesses noticed when customers returned. But what mattered most to Evelyn were the things no one could chart on a graph. The way neighbors spoke to each other again. The way fear loosened its grip. Evelyn never thought of herself as a leader. She still wore sensible shoes and the same old coat. Still corrected people gently when they tracked snow into her hallway. Still insisted that kindness didn't require a press release. "It's just how things ought to be," she said, whenever someone tried to thank her. On the anniversary of the blizzard, she felt a familiar restlessness settle in her chest. Not fear, readiness. At 8:12 p.m., her doorbell rang. She didn't hesitate. Through the glass, she saw a young couple huddled close together. The man cradled a baby wrapped in a thin blanket. The woman's eyes were wide with exhaustion and worry. A compact car sat half buried at the edge of her driveway, hazard lights blinking weakly. Evelyn opened the door immediately. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "You're freezing." The relief on their faces nearly broke her heart. They introduced themselves quietly, embarrassed by the trouble. The man Miguel explained that he had recently left the army. 3 tours, too many nights without sleep. They were driving through Buffalo for a job opportunity when the car finally gave up. "The baby's cold," the woman said, her voice trembling. "I've got you," Evelyn replied, without thinking. "All of you." She wrapped the baby in one of Frank's old blankets and set water to boil. Hot chocolate for the mother, coffee for Miguel. Soup simmered on the stove, the smell filling the kitchen like a promise. Within minutes, headlights appeared outside. Donovan's truck pulled up, followed by another. No sirens. No fuss. Just help arriving exactly when it was needed. Miguel stared in disbelief as introductions were made, as phone calls went out, as solutions appeared without hesitation. A mechanic checked the car. A furnished apartment 2 blocks away was offered for the night. Childcare contacts, medical referrals, How can we ever repay this? Miguel asked, his voice thick. Evelyn smiled the same gentle smile she had worn that first night. You don't repay it, she said. You pass it on. The storm passed quietly that night. By morning, the streets were clear again. Life went on. The difference was that now no one faced it alone. Evelyn's home became something she never planned for and never tried to control. It became a place people gravitated toward when they needed steadiness. A place where veterans talked through memories they'd buried. Where neighbors learned each other's names. Where grief was allowed to exist without shame. Donovan once told her that what she had created couldn't be taught in training manuals. You didn't organize this, he said. You modeled it. She waved him off as usual. I opened a door. That's how movements start, he replied. Word traveled beyond Buffalo. Other cities reached out. Other veterans groups asked questions. They didn't want a program. They wanted the spirit of it. Evelyn shared what she could, careful not to let the attention change the work itself. She refused interviews that focused on her as a savior. She redirected praise to the people who showed up every day. She reminded anyone who would listen that communities were rebuilt one decision at a time. When the weather warmed, she planted flowers along the front of the house. Frank had always liked marigolds. She liked seeing color where there had once been only gray. Some evenings, she sat on the porch and watched motorcycles roll past in slow, steady pairs. Not as a show of force, as a promise kept. She thought often of that first knock, of the fear, of the choice she almost didn't make. The world still had its storms. People still struggled. But Evelyn had learned something powerful. Kindness didn't need to be loud to be strong. One open door had reminded 9 men who they were. Those men had reminded a neighborhood what safety felt like. And that neighborhood had begun reminding the world that decency still mattered. When people asked Evelyn what changed her life, she never mentioned the blizzard, or the motorcycles, or the oath. She always said the same thing. I decided not to turn someone away. And that decision kept rippling outward long after the snow melted. Evelyn Carter never set out to change anything beyond one cold night. She didn't make plans, issue statements, or ask to be seen. She was simply a woman who had spent her life doing the quiet work of staying decent in a world that often rewarded indifference. When the storm came, she didn't know the men on her porch were veterans. She didn't know their past, their rank, or the weight they carried. All she knew was that 9 human beings were freezing and she had a door. That choice revealed something profound. Not about the men in leather, not even about the community that grew afterward, but about Evelyn herself. She was never invisible. She had always been essential. The world just hadn't been paying attention. What followed wasn't a miracle in the cinematic sense. It was something harder and rarer. Trust rebuilt, dignity restored, a neighborhood stitched back together by people who decided to show up instead of turning away. Evelyn's home became more than shelter. It became a signal. A place that said, you matter. You're safe here. The men she helped didn't repay her with fear or force. They repaid her with protection service and loyalty rooted in honor. Not because they owed her, but because her kindness reminded them who they were when the uniform came off. She didn't save them. She reflected them back to themselves. And that is where the real power of this story lives. The lesson isn't that heroes ride motorcycles or that kindness always comes back multiplied. The deeper truth is simpler and more uncomfortable. Every one of us will face a moment when doing the right thing feels risky, when helping someone costs us comfort, certainty, or safety. In those moments, we don't get to hide behind excuses or wait for permission. We choose who we are. Evelyn Carter teaches us that character isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in small decisions made when no one is watching. Opening a door, listening instead of judging, treating people as human before asking who they are or what they deserve. In today's world, where fear is louder than empathy and division is easier than connection, this lesson matters more than ever. You don't need money status or influence to apply it. You apply it when you check on an elderly neighbor, when you don't look away from someone struggling, when you offer help without calculating what you'll get in return. Someone near you is facing their own storm right now. Maybe not a blizzard, but something just as isolating: loneliness, loss, desperation. You may be the only safe door they see. The question this story leaves us with isn't what Evelyn did. It's what you will do when your moment comes. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of the kind of person you want to be, support this channel by subscribing. Every subscription helps us continue sharing stories that restore faith in humanity and remind us that ordinary people can still do extraordinary good. Stay with us. More stories like this are coming.